Ratings are an all-important part of the television industry these days, and there are a number of organisations, JICRA, Barb, Mori, Dreft. Sorry, that's a washing powder, isn't it? Anyway, there are a number of them that nowadays have more and more sophisticated technology to work out what you watch and how often. The latest technique, the camera in the television, of course, records not only what you watch, but your reactions to it. So we put one in Nick's TV for a week to see if it works, and indeed to see if he works. Extraordinary. Well done.
Whose legs are those, may I ask?
I'm not sure, actually. The shoes look like a pair of yours, Angus.
I think the legs are mine as well. Okay, well, it's all very easy to say that television is an eclectic, esoteric idiosyncrasy, but personal, or perhaps not, but personal opinion differs as to what makes good or bad TV, and one man's meat is another man's Keith Chegwin. So, what in their quieter moments do the showbiz stars watch? Well, sadly, Tony Hawks has left the studio, so we can't ask him. But instead, will you please welcome a man who 3 years ago was a practicing and successful barrister, but then things went seriously wrong, and he now has to scrape a living presenting television programs. Ladies and gentlemen, please go mad for Clive Anderson. So, you've got your copy of
I was asked to
Radio
riffle through
Times.
the Radio Times.
That's the wrong one. It should be the TV Times, shouldn't it?
Oh, should it? Oh, no. That's all my research gone wrong.
Oh, damn.
I was looking for the shed advert. They always used to have an advert for sheds.
Have they not got it?
No, it's been replaced by home composting. Things moving on in the
It's probably the
Radio
same
Times.
company. They're just
Yes.
moving on to other things. So, are you a telly addict? Can I ask you?
No, that's Noel Edmonds, I think you're thinking of. But, I tend to sort of slump down. I think you mentioned right at the beginning. I just sort of slump down occasionally, and then I just flick through what's on. I don't
So
really-
you're in better at the channel hopper, are you?
Yes, the best place to do that is America, where they have like 50 channels, so you never have to watch more than like 2 seconds each. And so I'm like a sort of 6-year-old American when I watch television. But in England, of course, you have to come round. There's only 4 channels.
Exactly. So you have an attention span of 2 seconds. That must be a bit of a problem with being a barrister, isn't it?
So were you saying something?
So do you watch every night? So I suppose with your work, it's difficult because you don't get home until the small hours.
What,
and you're presenting
prostitution work. Yes. I thought on Sunday night there might be an interesting program about the French referendum.
Right.
We're worried about whether they're going to say non or oui. And I see in the Daily Telegraph, the worst thing that could happen is that we get a lukewarm oui from the French. And that's what John Major's fearing. But there's nothing on that at all. So you have to get up on Monday morning and see Richard Madeley and Judy Finnegan in This Morning. They might be covering it.
Yes, the Richard and Judy show. Or
Punch
the
and Judy, it's
morning
normally
version.
called.
Good. Any others that you can...
Pleasant Imperfect. That sounds like a good program. It's all about Max Clifford, who puts all those stories in the papers which aren't true.
Yes.
Or I say not true, they're the sort of non-news things that are developed. He discovered Pamela Bordes with, I think, an editor of a Sunday paper. And,
Who will remain nameless?
no, she's famous for...
Oh, all right. Andrew Neil.
Andrew Neil.
Yes. Who will remain nameless. Thank you very much, Clive. Any other ones that you want to point out?
You're going to suck me dry here. I spent most of my reading the Radio Times, which has a feature on TV Hell, which is a program you presented, and lots of people have written in to say their idea of what TV Hell would be like. And somebody from Ormskirk says anything starring Angus Deayton.
On that delightful note, thank you very much indeed, Clive Anderson. I had it pointed out to me. bloody relatives get everywhere, don't they? Well, that's just about all we have time for. Our thanks to Clive and to Tony Hawks. A brief goodbye from Nick and Alison.
Goodbye.
That's about as brief as you can get. But before we go, a quick roundup of what you can look forward to this coming week. Tomorrow, there's Michael Winner's True Crimes. That's a retrospective of his film career. On Monday, World in Action interviews David Sullivan, editor of the Sunday Sport, about his new semi-detached house on Jupiter and the 3 heads growing out of his knee. On Tuesday, there's the new series introduced by Richard Madeley. That's Checkout 92. On Wednesday, Alex Higgins, Oliver Reed and George Best take part in a late-night discussion programme. That's Men Behaving Badly. On Thursday, there's boxing, wrestling and karate. That's all in the Italian League football match on Channel 4. On Friday, Terms of Endearment, one of those films to watch with a box of Kleenex beside you. And later that night on Sky, Velvet Dreams with Cassie Shower. Another of those films to watch with a box of Kleenex beside you. And on Saturday, there's Bugger All, so you might just have to watch us again. Till then, good night. Thank you very much. There are certain programmes which, down the years, have virtually become British institutions. Top of the Pops, Blue Peter, Tomorrow's World, the list ends there. And over the coming weeks, it'll be our proud duty to lovingly celebrate the life history of one of these old chestnuts. Alison.
Well, anyone who remembers Jimmy Savile, David Jacobs and Peter Powell will be delighted to know that this week we're looking back at some of the finer moments of tomorrow's world. Looking back at some of the earliest Tomorrow's Worlds from the beginning of the 1960s, it's staggering to note the uncanny level of accuracy in their predictions of what life would be like by the year 1976.
Introducing Mabel, the robot housemaid. Begin the day with Able Mabel. She'll run your bath to exactly the temperature she knows you like. She'll make your bed and lay out clothes for yet another day free from household drudgery, free from time-wasting chores like vacuum cleaning. Carelessness is unknown to Mabel. She's programmed with built-in reliability. Priceless sculpture, Mabel can be trusted to dust it. Mabel, the multi-fingered robot whose hands combine the strength of a gorilla with the sensitivity of a watchmaker. What other robot has such a combination? Mabel, available at all good computer stores for only £500. Mabel will make 1976 a real leisure year. Buy Mabel now.
Mabel, of course, now a permanent fixture in most British homes. Or at least the few that are still made out of bricks and cement. In 1966, Tomorrow's World announced that houses would soon be made of paper.
These deep corrugated ribs are reinforced at the base by anchoring them firmly into plywood templates cut to exactly the right shape. This will be the house for a family of 6, with cooking facilities inside, but using a communal washing area. These houses are designed as temporary accommodation, but with our experience of prefabs, who can say that they won't still be standing in the year 2000?
Equally prophetic was the Tomorrow's World prediction in 1967 for the future of personal transport. Very handy for nipping down to the shops for the groceries. Or if you fancied a day in the country, you could leave the hovercraft at home and just get out the vertical take-off pogo stick. But where they really soared was in their inspired vision of commuting for the 1990s, demonstrated here on the Thames by the young James Burke. Not, of course, that the dear old motor car was left out of things. Compact, stylish and usually electric, the car of the 90s was predicted to be a cut or two above the boring old Morris Minor. But of all Tomorrow's World's startlingly accurate predictions, perhaps most impressive of all is the way they anticipated the now universal usage of the artificial mouth.
Well, here is our machine, or as we prefer to call it, our artificial mouth. This is a speaker which produces the same pattern of sound in front of its artificial lips as is produced by the average human talker. This is our device which enables us to replace the average human talker.
Which police first caught the wolf champing rotten zebra bait near my gatehouse?
I might seem a little confused there, but then at that stage it was little more than a plastic sphere with a hole. It was only much later that it was developed into the device that we now refer to as Janet Street Porter.
Yes, judges do treasure very thin, soiled T-shirts.
Little did they know what a catchphrase that was to become. Yes, judges do treasure very thin, soiled T-shirts.
All right, Sid, get this salad dressed.
What became of all these doomed no-hope anachronisms? Well, Kieran Prendeville now writes for the bill. As for Raymond Baxter or Michael Rodd, who knows? Only one presenter's fate can be guessed with any degree of certainty, and that's John Parry's, from the day he agreed to test a particularly stout pair of headphones by getting into a dustbin with a stick of dynamite.